we ultimately attract people with the life that we lead. That's the ultimate. When we choose a partner, we don't just choose, like a one-dimensional, or a two-dimensional image of who they are. We choose a life with them. We want to feel like our life is going to be more exciting and more interesting than if we were single. Otherwise, why be in a relationship? Especially,
But let me
women
ask you a
today,
question.
we're not trying to get a husband to pay our rent for the most part. We're trying to get a more interesting life.
Coming up on this week's episode of the Ask Women podcast, we talk today about mindful swiping when on the dating apps. And just before you start rolling your eyes, being like, oh God, this is like a hippy dippy episode. It's not. It is not a hippy dippy episode. We are going to tell you exactly how you should be using online dating as men so that you get not only the best results, but the most results when you use online dating so that you don't get ghosted. You don't get asked for money. You do all these horrible things that happen to you guys online. We want to stop that from happening. We have an amazing guest on this show who is going to guide you through the steps of setting up your profile and then dating online and how to do it all intentionally and mindfully. So keep listening.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's so fun to be here.
Yeah, so wonderful to have you here. So I think your publicist had sent information over to us. We get a lot of people sending in different guests that they would love to be on our show. And I saw your pitch and I was like, yes, we have to have her on because it was about mindful swiping online, which I think is so key because I have a lot of single girlfriends and when I'm with them, they're constantly swiping and all I think is like, you're swiping wrong. Stop swiping the way. And I know, listen, I relay that information to men about how they're swiping and what they're looking for. But if they actually wanted results online, they would swipe differently. And Kristen has to say something, obviously.
For years, there has been videos and or a video of someone who made like a dildo or something, sit on an electric something
swipe
that
it.
just moved like a thumb and was just swiping right on every single girl. And it's such a classic video because obviously it's absurdly funny, but it's also actually how guys swipe.
Yes.
Except they're not using their ween, like literally they're using it in their head.
Yes.
They're just like, I just want a piece. So I'm
something.
swiping right on everything.
Exactly. So let's take a step back and tell us exactly like what mindful swiping means and then give some guidance to the men that are listening about how they can be more mindful about their swiping so they actually get results. I would love to hear that.
Yeah, I'm super passionate about this, because I think there's so much bad dating advice out there, especially targeted towards men.
Yeah.
It's usually either one of those two things. Either you have to play the game just right.
Numbers game.
Numbers game. You have this way of manipulating her into liking you. And then, it's kind of self-abandonment. You have to scratch whatever you're into and who you are and scratch that kind of self-connection that's so important for building relationships. And you might end up coming across as very generic, just like every other guy. That doesn't work. Or there's also the camp of advice that says like, just be yourself. Well, that doesn't really work either if you're not going to do the work to understand who you are and to learn to communicate who you are and your complexity and all of, your range of, we're all very complex individuals, but sometimes just be yourself. We don't really know how to communicate effectively about that.
I totally agree.
So mindful swiping is a process that I designed to help people, including men, to, first of all, stay in the driver's seat of their dating apps usage, because oftentimes, people get so distracted by endless notifications and messaging, and they're no longer feeling like they're in control. So, the first pillar of mindful swiping is about ritualizing your use of the apps and being really in control and having a strong container about that. I can talk about that more later.
Yeah.
And then it's about really understanding what does it mean to be authentic and to show up as yourself on the app.
Keep talking. I want to hear all of this.
Create the right magnet. like create the right magnetism to attract people who are actually compatible with you,
Mm-hmm.
not just try to have the biggest funnel as possible, but actually, like let people recognize who you are.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And yeah, I'll talk more about it, but I'm
Yeah. No,
curious
no, no.
about
Start.
your
Let's.
impressions.
No, start talk. I really, honestly, I just want to sit and listen to everything that you have to say because I feel like you will guide these guys correctly. But I'm gonna like guide you down the path that I think they're looking to understand.
Yeah.
So I even love what you said at the very beginning about just being yourself and how that's so important because that comes in so handy for creating your own profile because so many guys write generic things.
Yeah.
They're trying to again appeal to the masses. They don't want to say things that might put certain women off. So I want to stop talking and I really just want to hear your guidance for the full process for men, specifically
Right.
about like first of all, how to figure out what be yourself means and then
Mm-hmm.
how to put that into a profile that can draw the right choices in. And then I want to flip to the other side about how to
Yeah.
actually select women to go out with. But I'd love
Mm-hmm.
to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. And maybe I can give you an example of a success case from one of my coaching clients who was a 26-year-old guy, a really great person, but he also was a virgin and had no relationship
Mm-hmm.
experience. And he was, like self-admittedly a nerd. And he was an
Yeah.
engineer and a philosopher and a musician. And he
Oh,
had
amazing.
so many great interests, but he didn't think that women would like nerds. And his online dating profile when I first met him was just really like a fraction of who he was. Like he was not representing himself correctly in all of his magnificence and, like all of his fascinating interests. So, first of all, we revamped his online dating profile, had him create a visual story with his photos, because I think that authenticity is not about just featuring one thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
about featuring the range and the breadth of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the photos should show different facets of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then I encourage him to actually like come out and talk about his nerdy interests and talk about what he thinks about and is interested in. And
Well, actually, I'm gonna interrupt
so,
you for a second.
yeah.
So what would be some good prompts for guys to help? So, like, yes, definitely, a whole bunch of guys can come and work with you or work with other experts. Like Kristen also helps with banter and also online profiles as well.
Yeah.
Um, if they can't come work with you guys, what are some prompts for these guys for them to like think in the way that you're describing? Like, how do they tell a story to show every facet of their life? How
Hmm.
do they get that information out of their head and onto paper to properly represent themselves?
Yeah. Well, one prompt that I often give is what are the things that you bring to a relationship? Like, what are your
Mm,
gifts? What are your areas of strengths? And to try to, include some of that in your dating profile in as much of a colorful, demonstrative way as possible. Like, not just say, like, oh, I'm very funny, but to be able to make a joke in
show
your
you being
profile.
funny, right? It's
Yes,
it's like
show, don't
it's
tell.
show me, don't yeah.
Right.
Yeah, those prompts really are super important. And I make over profiles as well. And you're speaking my language, like you have a accent, but to me, there's no
You're the same
accent.
person.
We
Yes.
are the same person. You're saying every single thing that I say to my clients. Authenticity,
Hmm.
authenticity, authenticity.
Yeah.
With the prompt stuff, I always try to throw stuff at them um, that might feel a little cheesy, but it's stuff like, what would God say to you upon entering heaven?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, where it's like you're really out of the box, but it really paints a bigger picture of you, so
I
you can
love that.
actually see who you are from like this outsider's perspective. So, what
Yeah.
would your friends say about you?
Oh, they
Would
say at your
they
funeral. I love that.
exactly that kind of stuff? But also, obviously, knowing
Mm-hmm.
yourself and like what was one thing you would never, ever, 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 ever do again,
Mm. Yep.
and would you do it if I paid you $100,000 or what, like just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the most
Mm-hmm.
random things that they won't be in the prompts that are actually in the profiles online, but
Yeah.
they'll feed your brain when you're filling out these prompts. Cause even like as someone who makes profiles, if I'm online making a profile for myself, I go completely blank.
Yeah.
I all of a sudden like have no personality. I have nothing to say. I don't know what my likes are, my dislikes are. I'm just kind of like, like a deer in headlights. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
it's that pressure of those staring you in the face. If you are
Mm-hmm.
doing something on the side to conjure up all of these thoughts about yourself first,
Yeah,
you won't be like a deer in headlights.
Mm-hmm.
You'll
totally.
just be a sweet deer.
My sweet dear, yes,
Yes. Well,
yes.
actually, so let me ask you a
It's
question.
mhm,
So a sweet deer, I have to be
I'm
honest, is that what
no.
I know that you're saying that, but like that would be a question. How do you package this as something that's sexy to women? Because as I was saying before, and you were saying it too, people are just going right, 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 or left, right. Like they just go by what they see
mhm,
initially.
mhm, mhm.
So as wonderful as it is, and yes, you can mindfully place things up, but how do you help the like you actually stand out by while still being your authentic self? How do you do that?
Well, again, I'm going to come back to range because we all have so many aspects of who we are. So, one aspect might be the sweet deer that might say, like to the audience online, like, oh, I'm looking for romance and I'm looking to treat my lady like a queen. And that maybe comes from the heart. And that's something that you need to say, like, what kind of relationship are you envisioning? And maybe that's a little cheesy or that's the sweet, kind of tender, vulnerable part. But then, if you also make a sassy joke next to it, that shows that you're not just that sweet dear. You're
Mm-hmm.
also sassy and funny, and you can be, I
And
don't know, a little
bold.
sarcastic or
Mm-hmm.
bold.
That's
Or
the key.
if you're one of those things only, that's not that
Hmm.
attractive. But if you're both, that's kind of like a fine wine. It
Mm-hmm.
has not only sugar or
Mm-hmm.
tannin or acidity, it has a little bit of everything, and that keeps you interested.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard for me to uh, be be kind and courteous and listen because I'm like, yes, I just want to be like, yes, yes, and cut you off and be like, I agree.
Oh my gosh.
But that's the thing is this range. People, for some reason, it seems that they think online or now even in person when they meet, they have to be this perfect person, which ends up making you one dimensional. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
one dimensional is killing dating. It is
Yeah,
killing dating. We are
yeah.
not one dimensional beings. And the way in which people are functioning in this world of dating right now is not even one dimensional, it's half dimensional. So
Mm-hmm.
not no one's, but the majority of people aren't showing that range that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so it's being dynamic, having
Mm-hmm.
dynamism. It's so
Right.
attractive. And
Mm-hmm.
so these one note answers are going to get you one note responses and
Mm-hmm.
barely responses, if that.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And I'll go even further and say, like, well, if you're looking at yourself and your life and you're thinking, like, gosh, I kind of have a boring life and I'm not that complex or I don't have much range, I would say, like, maybe instead of focusing so much on getting a partner right now, like, focus on
Some
getting a life that
range.
you feel excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't have to be like, oh, you have to go jumping, but like if you haven't taken a new hobby or met new people in a long time and you feel like you're stuck in a rut, like we ultimately attract people with the life that we lead.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ultimate, like when we choose a partner, we don't just choose, like a one-dimensional, like, or a two-dimensional image of who they are. We choose a life with them. We want to feel like our life is going to be more exciting and more interesting than if we were single. Otherwise, why be in a relationship? Especially, like
But let me
women
ask you a
today,
question.
we're not trying to get a husband to pay our rent for the most part. We're trying to get a more interesting life.
Well, okay, but what if people aren't?
What if
What
people
what
aren't?
like what if they're not trying to get a more interesting life? Like what if some people are like, "No, this is me. I'm kind of fine with the fact that I sit on my porch, I look out the window, I enjoy the easy things in life." Like I have a lot of clients who are 50 plus who are retired. Like
Mm-hmm.
what if all they want is simplicity? Right?
They can express that in an interesting way.
Mhm.
That's all it is. It's just
Yeah.
repositioning it. And being boring can be totally cool.
Yeah.
Like for me, sorry to
Mm-hmm.
say I'm very cool, but I'm not exciting. I love sleeping.
Yeah.
And
She's really good at sleeping.
yeah, that's really my only talent. But the way I position it will be in an entertaining way or an
Yeah.
interesting way or a different way to not put them to sleep. So it's really just about how you present it.
Yeah. And one note that I
Right.
do want to say is like what everything that we're saying right now, because that's what I was trying to get out of both of you is like you don't have to be this dynamic person who has 20 different hobbies, right? Because like for me myself, I'm the exact same way. The hobby I have is people, right? I don't really like I don't do ceramics. There is a coloring line around the corner. I'm never going to go there. I keep thinking I should, but I'm never going to. Like so you don't have to be this dynamic person. You just have to be interested in yourself, really. And on the flip
Mm.
side to that,
Yeah.
like if you are a person who doesn't want to put any effort in, wants to be a curmudgeon and angry, doesn't want to put effort out there and have it come to you naturally, then you're not going to see results with anything in your life, right? Whether that's going to the gym, that's getting a job, whatever, it's not just going to come to you. And you can't hate the world for that. You do have to put the effort in some way. So whether it's reframing the fact that you're a simple guy who just loves being simple, or that you're this dynamic person who has a million hobbies and they want to share that life with somebody else, like it's about the way that you express it, which I think is
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would
just
agree
Being
with that, like to be able to frame, like whatever life you have in a way where you own it and
yes.
you're able to just say like, yeah, I'm behind this,
Mm-hmm.
this is the life I'm choosing and I'm happy with it or, like I'm owning it. I
I
think
love
that's
that.
really powerful vibe.
Mm-hmm.
being passionate about not being passionate.
Oh, I
That's what you
love
do.
that.
It's just
Yeah,
playful
yeah.
and fun.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So I wanted to actually let's take a quick little break, and then I want to come back and I want to talk about like mindful swiping. And really,
Okay.
I want to dive into more of mindful because I want to know what that means to
And
be
what was the
mindful.
other word that you wanted to dive into?
Oh, compersion.
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 Yes, yes, but that has to do
I
with polyamorous relationships. But we can touch on that at the
uh
very. So it doesn't have anything to do with online dating, but
yeah, we
I
don't need to talk
definitely.
about it.
But it does have to do with open communication. So there is a segue there for us to talk about that. But let's talk about that in the second half of the show.
Right, right. Or we could do a whole other episode if you want, because it's a
Perfect.
whole other
Absolutely
conversation.
perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly. Stop trying to get attention from those that are
Sorry, I
watching
have the
you
worst
that we're live
migraine.
streaming to. All right, we'll be back right after this with Dr. Marie Thouin. All right, we are back and we're going to talk now about number one, mindfulness and mindful, like being mindful and then mindful swiping, right? Like this word mindful is attached to everything that we do. Mindful eating, mindful sleeping, mindful pooping, like everything. So, but like, what does it actually mean? It really like my understanding of it is just like not just being automated about things and actually like thinking through what you're doing and seeing if you agree with it, don't agree with it, if you're liking the choice. It's just sort of like be like I don't even know how to say it in
Well,
the
it's
most
like living without blinder,
yeah.
or I'm sorry, not living as a robot because we just become so accustomed to just this is what we do, this is what we do. We are not thoughtful about it whatsoever. We're not thinking about it at all, and
Yeah.
that leads to bad habits. And I think I hate being a person who's like mindfulness with like the Om fingers or whatever, but it truly will. I believe in my own experience, it's changed my life when I'm mindful of my negative thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm mindful of what I'm grateful for, or when I'm mindful of, oh, I
Just put
really
it
shouldn't
this
say
it
the
sounds
word
like it means
like.
putting attention onto it, right? Rather than just like
Yes,
okay.
awareness.
Yeah. So actually I'd
Yeah.
love to hear what you have to say, Dr.
Yeah,
Thune.
I would say awareness and presence would be
Yeah.
the two main words I would put on this. And, like presence is about, like being with our experience. And like you said, not being on autopilot. And it's so easy with algorithms to be on autopilot, whether it's social media, like God knows there's so many people now addicted to social media. And it's like every notification that bings, you have to go and then you get sucked in and you're not present with yourself. You're just kind of in that state of like you're a zombie, you're like a robot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to do, unfortunately, with dating apps. And that's what dating apps corporations want you to do. They want
Mm-hmm.
to keep people hooked. It's kind of like a slot machine, like you get a match. Oh my God, you get a hit of dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, then you feel like this starvation and you need to go back for more. And that
Um,
is not mindful, because you're just like giving away your presence to these algorithms.
Well, tell me more
Um,
about that. About like, first of all, tell me more about these algorithms and like how you just said like they're wanting you to
yeah.
not really be mindful. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, it is all about the cycle of dopamine. They act exactly like machines in a casino. Like they give you intermittent reward, which means that once in a while they give you a little piece of candy, like whether it's a match, or sometimes they'll even I think they might have been sued for that. They create fake profiles of really hot women who look
Mm-hmm.
perfect and too good to be true, just to
Keep you
make
on.
men believe that there's a lot of hot women wanting them out there.
Mm-hmm.
But really, they're not real, they're robots. So there's this manipulation already kind of in place when you're using dating apps that you have to be aware of and be able to take a step back and know and remember what you're there for. And to me, that's the presence piece.
Mm-hmm.
And the first pillar of mindful swiping, and I do have a whole video class that I just sell for 27 bucks on my website. It's really cheap, but it gives a really deep dive. But the first pillar is ritualizing your use of the apps. And that means no more all the notifications on. So your attention is in your control, it's not in the app's control.
Mm-hmm.
You compartmentalize your use of the apps in about 15 or 20 minutes a day. You're not just opening your app and swiping because you're
To pass time.
bored or angry or,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, to pass time,
Or
or
lonely. Yeah.
lonely.
lonely. Exactly. You're really like managing your use of the app so that, again, you stay in the driver's seat. And then when you sit down to use the app, you remember, what is my intention here? Is it just to get a boost of attention? Or is it to actually move closer to a really great, satisfying relationship or connection with a real person?
Mm-hmm.
And the
I love
more
that.
you can stay in that intention, the more you can understand too, like, even if you're not getting the match that you want, you can put that in perspective and say, like, I'm doing my best, I'm staying present with my experience, and I'm learning from my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to observe, like, the loneliness, the desperation, the excitement, the hope, like sometimes feeling rejected, like all of these emotions that are stirred up when we are online dating. If you can stay mindful, which means taking a step back and taking an observation stance, you can really learn more about yourself and start to not be such a slave of your
Mm-hmm.
emotional reactions, which is a life skill in
Mm-hmm.
and of its own.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think mindful swiping can be a sort of
It's
a
a great
practice.
practice. Yeah.
Exactly.
For it's funny, I've been saying this a lot recently for switching from being reactive to being responsive. So like
Yes.
instead of being in fight or flight mode, you're in
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the opposite is, right? Just like you're good. You're in
Presence.
yeah,
Fawn. No, not
present
fawn.
mode. Yeah.
Yeah, ignore what I
I
just
thought you
said.
said font. I'm like
I
font?
did
Well,
say
no,
fawn because that's the
fawn.
other that's
Oh,
the other
interesting.
fight or flight mechanism. You just
Okay.
fawn like a deer, almost like you
Oh yeah.
you
You're
you
just
kind
like,
of
okay, you're
freeze
set.
and
Oh,
or I'm
interesting.
It's
sorry,
the people pleasing
the
mechanism.
people
Like when you
pleasing. Yeah,
just, say to somebody, like when you feel threatened, like, oh, no, you're right. I'm going to give you
yeah,
what you
that's
want
Interesting.
to.
fawning.
Yeah, that's fawning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So instead being present and responsive instead of reactive. I love that. And because I think what
Hmm.
I'm hearing from you is that when you take a step back and you look at what you're doing, you can actually select better as well. And then you can
Yes.
engage better because you're intentional about who you're actually interacting with. You're not just saying, "Oh, she's hot, let's see because we matched. Let's see if
Hmm.
we actually click." I'm just going to start with a generic line, right? It's
Yeah,
about
exactly.
yeah. Yes, Kristen
I
in the
I
front.
have a genuine question.
Hmm.
It's in life, women will relate to this analogy and maybe a little bit more, but when you're shopping for clothes and you know what looks good on you, you know what your style is, you stick to that. Then randomly a friend's like, I've got this outfit that I'm not going to wear. Do you want it? And you look at it and you're like, I don't think I would wear that. You try it on and you're like, whoa, this actually looks really good.
I did
And I
that
would
with
have
this
never
outfit I'm
picked this
wearing
out.
right Wow, that's so
Well, I could
funny.
actually tell because I've never seen you wear that style before, but it looks very
I know.
pretty.
Thank you
It,
very much. I keep getting complimented on it, but
yeah, it's
I was
very
like, ugh, I
flowy
would
and
never
soft.
wear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so my question is, when we're swiping intentionally and we're doing the mindfulness thing and we're knowing, okay, this person is someone that would probably be right for me. When do you say, you know what? The heck with it. I'm going to try on that outfit that I would have
Mm-hmm.
never tried on before because maybe on the off chance it'll look good or it was meant for me and I wouldn't have picked it out in the first place. Is there a time and a place for that, or stay away from that in general?
Well, I really am in big favor of breaking patterns, especially when we come
Mm-hmm.
into dating with very ingrained patterns. And, like there's all kinds of patterns out there. Some people always tend to pick people who are unavailable. Some
Mm-hmm.
people tend to pick people who don't like them back. Some people pick the bad boy or the bad girl. And that's just what they're wired to do, usually from their childhood, from their trauma, from their old habits. And they never really get what they want ultimately. It never pans out into a satisfactory relationship. Then I say that's a great time to try on something else and
Mm-hmm.
maybe swipe on people who are not your type,
Mm-hmm.
who are not your normal type. Maybe not people who you can't imagine kissing because that's repulsive. No, that's a little too far away.
Well, that was going to be my
But
next question. Like, do
mhm,
you select people if you're like, I'm kind of attracted to them? Or like, do you? So I'm trying to get into the mindset of a guy, right?
yeah.
Who is swiping and he's like, okay, that girl, not attracted to her, not attracted to her, not attracted to her. Like, is there guidance there for you on how guys should actually be looking at it? Should they be letting girls who they think are like a 5 on their attraction scale go through and see if once they read their because I know it's different for men and women, right? For
Mm-hmm,
women, guys can
mm-hmm.
morph
Very
and
different.
they learn more about them. For men, it's a little bit different. But like, is there guidance of, okay, if there's somebody who's like a 6 on your scale, go and read her
Mm-hmm.
profile and see if there's actually something more
To
there,
bump her
or
up to a
to
seven
bump
in
her
your
up to a
mind.
7. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say yes. I would say if it's a maybe, then give that person a chance. Because also
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, there's a lot of people who don't have the best photos of
Mm-hmm.
themselves and they just look better in person, or they have this charisma in person
Yeah.
that you might not be able to pick up on from a photo.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if it's a maybe, give it a chance.
Yeah.
And
Well, I've not. Oh,
and
sorry.
so with that question, I asked it and I realized I asked it in the wrong way because
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about mindfully swiping, and I
Mm-hmm.
was looking at this as more of a free for all in a sense, but it's really not. It's
Mm-hmm.
mindfully swiping on
Right.
someone you wouldn't normally swipe on rather than just swiping left on
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everybody, or
It's
I'm sorry,
going out of
swiping right on
zombie mode,
everybody.
right? We're
Yeah.
Yeah.
getting out of
So
zombie mode and actually
Yes.
paying attention to the people that we're swiping on, which I think a lot of people
and
do in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Depending on why they're getting onto the apps, they might just be like, okay, let's have the first hot person that I see. But I think people are more mindful in the beginning than they are once they sort of get
see,
frustrated with
I
the
think
apps. Do you think
different.
would think it's the opposite?
Yeah, because I think when
They're
you
more
get on there,
idealistic in the beginning.
yeah, it's a new
Yeah.
world and look at all of these people I have access to and this is
I'm
exciting
not
and
going to give them a chance right now because obviously, look at all these matches I'm getting with super hot, right? So I get that.
Mm-hmm.
well you think the world's at your fingertips and then you're like,
Right. Then you're
oh
like,
my God,
oh,
I want to unalive myself. This is
right.
horrific. So then you start getting more selective because you're like, nope, I already talked to a guy or a girl that looked like that 5 times, couldn't
Yeah.
stand her, she
Mm-hmm.
ghosted me, goodbye. Like I think in my experience of what
Yeah.
the men I
Cynicism
work with
creeps
do,
in.
yeah,
Right,
the
right. And I
burnout.
think, yeah, it's so easy to get jaded. And that's why keeping it to like 15 minutes a day or something like that can really help with that sense of jadedness. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you're just swiping for an hour and it's taking over your life, then it's easier to burn out on it.
Totally.
But if you're keeping it as this practice, and let me come back to my client who was a 26-year-old virgin, never had a relationship before, and we created a great profile for him. And then he proceeded very methodically to
Mm-hmm.
even documenting how many people he was swiping on and how many matches he got. And he had a very low rate of matches, but he did not get discouraged. He just kept perspective. He was like, this is what I'm doing, and I'm not compromising on who I am. And lo and behold, he actually met a woman who had some of the very same nerdy interest as he did. And it was a major click. So he had a low rate of response, but the person he ended up meeting after like date number 3 or something, like he didn't go on that many dates, but the third date he went on became his girlfriend. And it was a really great relationship.
I love it.
So I think it's
I hope
important for
they've had sex by
guys.
now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, he did.
Yay.
He's no longer a virgin. That is
No
wonderful.
longer.
Okay, so
No
that's
longer.
that's amazing. So like I do want to wrap up the show now, but I just want to give like a final message to the guys out there. I love everything that Dr. Thune and Kristen have said today. Really being present in all aspects of your life is super important. But take Dr. Thune's guidance. 15 minutes a day. Be really present when you go on. Work to really show your authentic self. Use some of the prompts that Kristen and Dr. Thune shared at the beginning of this show. And then I know that both of them also have amazing prompts if you do work with them to help guide you further along this path to create a great profile and to figure out how to message women online. But thank you so much, Dr. Thune, for coming on the show and sharing this with us. I know that you did want to talk about compression on a different episode.
Compersion. Yes.
Compersion. But let's save that for
Compression.
another time. Let's leave the
Yes.
audience wanting more. So you'll come back
That
and
sounds
talk on
good.
our show for sure. But guys, just know it's all about polyamorous relationships if that interests you.
Ew.
But thank you so much for coming onto the show. Do you want to tell people where they can go to find out more information about you?
Absolutely. And I also want to say I work with people who are monogamous and non-monogamous, so I'm all about relationship intentionality.
I love it.
You know, I'm not here to promote one over the other. I'm just really a fan of not going into default mode, but
Yeah.
really wondering like, what am I into?
Figure
Like,
out
what
what's
is
right for
good?
you.
Exactly, exactly. So you can find all about my work on mindful dating, mindful swiping, and non-monogamy on my website, mariethouin.com. That's mariethouin.com. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Marie Thouin.
Yeah, we had your name way off. We were like, Thune.
Oh, it's all good. You know,
I was
there's
not
no real way to
mindful in
translate
You're
it.
my.
not mindful.
No. You did get it. I mean, honestly,
One of the
like,
7 times we got it correctly, I'm
there's
sure.
no real like official way to pronounce it in English. Like it's a French
Oh,
name,
see?
so
There
it's
you
all
go.
good. Yeah.
There you go.
I like that open. It's almost like polyamorous naming.
Yes, exactly. It's a
Right.
polyamorous last name. I
Yeah,
love it.
variety's good.
Exactly. All right. That's a great way to end our show. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, Kristen, for being on with us this week. If you want to check out any work with Kristen, who has a migraine right now, go to Kristen and no, it's not Kristen and Chill. Kristen Dating.
KristenandChillDating.com. I just added the word dating to it.
Dating.com.
Very creative.
Got it. Very creative. Yeah. And you guys are awesome. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, Marnie. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.